Welcome back, everyone, to the latest edition of the Walker AC Experience. And to you, my friends, yes, you are my friends. This is Walker AC, otherwise known as Adrian, to all of you out there. And joining me in this special edition of the Experience is a good friend of mine who I met way back when. I think you'll like her. Matter of fact, I know you'll like her. She always wanted to do podcasting, so why not bring her on and give her a shot? It's my good friend Carmen. Hey, Carmen, how are you?
Hey everybody. Hi Walker. I am doing all right. If I'm above ground and breathing, I'd say it's a good day, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I mean, the moment you wake up, the hard part's over. So,
Yep. It is great to be on the show. Thank you so much.
no problem. I mean, I hear you wanted to do some podcasting here and there, so I figure let's bring you on, let's hear your story. And the most thing about this show is for everyone, not just myself, it's for everyone. So people who are inspired to be heard, to have their voices out there, their stories told. I do not mind. I welcome anyone and everyone. So, my dear Carmen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little about myself. Well, I am a little person. Not a little person, but no, I'm about 5 foot tall. I am very short, petite. But anyway, a little about myself. Well, I was born in Cocoa Beach, Florida. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's about 20 minutes away from where the space shuttle goes up. So that's pretty exciting how we're involved in the Space Coast and right near Kennedy Space Center, which part of my family has worked with, including my mom. Um, so, yeah, I was born Monday, June 30th, 1980. Now, I know a lot of you youngins are like 42. It just seems so old, like when you're in your 20s and 30s, but honestly, it's not, and when you don't realize that until you get to that age, and we're all young at heart anyway. But, so yeah, I was born on a Monday at 10:27 p.m. No, and I'm a Cancer, which I'm really into astrology. So for you people out there who are into the signs and astrology, and so am I. And Cancers are considered to be um, emotional, sensitive, moody homebodies, but definitely not wimps. We do feel things very deeply. Really, uh, we really care about the home and family, and the kitchen. Which I am a foodie. I am pretty small. You wouldn't think I am, but I absolutely love food, especially being fed food. Just put it in front of my face and I'll eat it. But I am an artist. I think, like, first and foremost, I'm a very creative, imaginative person. From as as far back as I can remember, I was putting on little shows in my neighborhood, um, making up dances. I think the first piece of music I bought, for anyone my age, was a cassette tape of Janet Jackson's Rhythm Nation. And I memorized every word to every song of that tape and made up dances to everyone and performed it and taught it to my little friends in the neighborhood. And it was a blast. But so, yes, I'm an artist. I do anything from I draw, I paint, mixed media. So just a little of everything on canvas or paper. Um, and I love to do woodworking, even though I haven't done that much. Um, yeah. Geez, what else about me? So yeah, I grew up the first part of my life in Titusville, Florida, for any locals out there. And it was actually a really nice place to live. I went to Apollo Elementary School, and that was kind of a weird time. Um, I have really, really curly hair, like not just curly, but frizzy, thick, kinky curly hair. And I always wanted to be different. And I remember wanting to get my hair cut. It was a style at the time where you cut it really short and it gets shaved in the back, like in a V. And boy, was I tortured. I mean, kids can be so cruel. I was bullied over my hair. So, that's something that stands out in my life. Yeah. And I'm a pretty strong, tough person, or I just hold it in. But I do remember there were days I, didn't want to go to school, or I'd go to the clinic saying I had a stomach ache just to not be there. Eventually that stopped when we moved to Merritt Island, which is where I've spent most of my life. Making sure I'm still there. Okay, my phone blinked. Merritt Island. Junior high is where it kind of turned around. You know, people were more worried about themselves, because you're turning in, puberty's happening. And, yes, people still made fun of certain people, but they were mostly worried about their own appearance and, if they're impressing people. God, I could just keep going if you want me to.
No, no, it's perfectly fine. One of my questions is,
Yeah.
what made you interested in getting into podcasting?
Well, I think what got me into like this form of media was ASMR, which, bear with me, I haven't said it in a long time. It stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. And they are what's actually blown up. I think everyone knows what ASMR is possibly by now. When I used to speak about it years ago, nobody knew what I was talking about. And now, over the past 4 or 5 years or so, it's really blown up. But it's pretty much relaxation videos, and I actually still have my 3DO microphone because I wanted to start making my own. I wanted my own ASMR channel. I just felt I never had a good enough phone. I haven't bought a decent camera yet. And due to, like, I'll say medical things, it's just been pushed off to the side. But I really am interested, besides ASMR, to speak about addiction and mental health, because I really feel it is not talked about enough or put to light enough. Even myself can be told, hey, that girl over there is a drug addict. And I could be like, ooh, that's disgusting. And I am one. I am on the journey in recovery, and it is not just a person in an alley that you might picture. It's anyone from a lawyer at the tallest skyscraper in New York to someone you see talking on the news, doing the newscast at night, your neighbor. I mean, it just like AIDS, it does not discriminate. So it is not a defect of character. It is a chemical imbalance disease of the brain, because nobody really wants that life. And so why don't they just stop? Well, because they have figured out that it is a chemical imbalance in your brain and a disease of the brain. And that is because why would we want to torture ourselves? We don't. I mean, maybe there's a percent that wants that life, but most of the time, no. And just like any habit, whether it's a good habit, whether like it doesn't even have to do with drugs or alcohol. Say your habit is hopping into the car a certain way and turning on a radio station when you leave for work in the morning. And you've done that every day for years on end. It's just a habit. It's in you. You don't even think about it when you do it. Just imagine trying to break that. Well, when it comes to chemicals, drugs, and alcohol, it is 10 times harder. But there's just so much to speak about on this subject. And, there are good seeds and there are bad seeds of addicts, but of any person. And I want to educate people on the disease of addiction and speak about mental health issues because it's a real thing. And I think most people have it in some way, shape, form, or another. And I think it really does help someone when they hear stories or they don't feel so alone because someone is speaking about maybe the exact same thing that they're going through. And what if that podcast or whatever didn't happen and they never got to hear that? Just imagine how much lonelier and depressed and hopeless you'd feel, So, I want to just talk about my life. I want to talk about addiction. I want to talk about art. I want to talk about mental health. I want to talk about how the world is today. And even when it comes to social media, you know, um, I do feel it's a little sad that everyone's on their phone all the time. Um, I mean, it had to happen because things progress and, you know, medically for medical reasons. Like just yesterday, I had my heart checked. I had a cardiovascular something or another, pretty much um, what do you call it? Like when a woman is pregnant and you get an ultrasound of the heart. And just the technology that he had yesterday that was not there 10 years ago, 30 years ago, and it has to do with computer and technology. So it is needed. But it is sad to me how people can't even hardly look each other in the face anymore or walk by somebody down the street and they're afraid to look you in the eye and say hello, because it's all about the phone. And the best part of my childhood was using my imagination. Oh my gosh, being out in the woods, pretending we're witches, making potions, using your imagination was the best possible thing in the world as a kid. And, anyway, just my opinion on that. And yeah, just like you, anyone and everyone would be invited to talk about whatever they wanted. And it's not just about being serious, because I do have a lot of humor in my dark things that I've dealt with. That is how I cope. It's a coping mechanism. I do use humor in my recovery and my addiction, but it's hilarious sometimes when I do see something funny and I'm like, well, can't pop those pills or, so it's not going to be all serious. It's, and we're all in this together. And, yeah. How about that?
No, that works perfectly fine. I mean, addiction is a very serious thing, and for someone to break the addiction takes a very, very strong-willed person, more mentally than anything. So
Yes.
your story will definitely resonate, and whether it be touch one person or 100 people. Everyone's story is important.
And everyone knows an addict, whether it's someone in their family, a friend, believe you me, it will affect them, and whether it's them or someone they knew or know, and it didn't, you know, it started out just, with anxiety. Like, I wasn't always addicted to something, that happened at a certain point in my life. And I was what's called a functioning addict because I always had a job, but other than that, I didn't have a life. I didn't get married because of it. I don't have children because of it. And that's something I've always wanted, and want very much. But here I am, 42 years old, starting my life over again, and I know there's people that can relate. And, I wanted help for many, many years, but there really wasn't a lot of help out there. And they're kind of, they're getting on the ball, but, there still isn't enough. And yeah, even you, I would like to explain to you more. If anyone, I wish, okay, there's one thing I must say that I wish everyone in the world could watch. And it's called Pleasure Unwoven. And I've never seen or heard addiction explained so well, and like why those people do what they do, or why they don't just stop. Or, it's just amazing. And his name is Kevin Mick something. I'll have to relook it up. But he used to be a nurse, a doctor for the Blue Angels. I think I'm saying that right. Like, he was a top dog doctor for the military and what are called the Blue Angels. Have you ever? Is that the correct name? The they fly the jets like in a triangle in the sky. Like, they're the fastest flying, most talented. Um, have you ever,
Um,
Walker?
yes, I have. And just in case, as we put up the synopsis for the show later on this evening, I'm going to do a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of I'm gonna do a little bit of fact checking. So if we do misspeak, it will definitely be in the notes of the show.
Okay. Yeah. Um, so yeah, it's just amazing, and it really, wow, is a wake up call for the person who has the problem and the non addict. Just, it'll totally change your mind on what you think you know about it. And he himself, like I said, was like a top. He now travels across the country, speaking to colleges and people who are getting, studying to become a doctor, and tells his story, and then pretty much explains what he does in that documentary, Pleasure Unwoven. But like I said, he was a doctor for the Blue Angels, for um, the top dog, and he ended up hurting his back. And little, like, months down the road, he gets hooked on the pain medication. And later down the road, he's shooting it in his arm before he starts doing a surgery on a Blue Angel. So like I said, it touches everyone, you know, and until you really understand, you're going to look down on it or say, oh, it's, blah, 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 blah. But you really don't know what you're talking about, you know, until you get a little bit education on that. So I plan to do that in some of my stuff with you and on my own, hopefully one day.
Of course, and we definitely love to hear something about that because, like I mentioned before, addiction is a very serious thing to do, and there's so many different ways people can get addicted onto it, and it takes tons of willpower
Mine was
to.
from dental work. Sorry to interrupt. Mine was from getting dental work done. point blank. Like, yes, literally. I mean, I drank a lot as a kid, like as a teenager, and that became a problem, you know. But then I started abusing the pain medication I got from my dentist. And I didn't, but one night when the guy that was my soulmate that I loved so much didn't come over when he said he was, and my heart was broken, I took one without being in pain, and oh, the floodgates opened and it filled that hole, that was whatever empty hole you have inside, and euphoria came, and it was a wrap. It was on from there. Quit drinking, and my full love was on those pills. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah.
So that was your catalyst. When did you realize that it was going overboard, for you as far as being addicted to it? What was I mean, like, what was the breaking point for that, that you realized that it was a problem?
Oh, I will definitely tell you. It actually was when I couldn't get them anymore. Ah, it was when I had a problem getting them. I'm like, I need help. I'm freaking out here. How am I going to get them? And I took myself to detox. And by the way, I've never been court ordered, and it's okay if you have, but all the help I've ever gotten was on my own will. It was never forced. I've always wanted it. And there is one thing that's helped the most that was non-narcotic that I wish they would have told a lot more people about, that really actually worked and kept me clean, which I'll talk about another time. It's called Vivitrol shot. But the breaking point was it was a few years into it, and I actually had a very good relationship with my pharmacist at Albertsons in Merritt Island. It's no longer there, so I will say it. I won't say the person's name, but they kind of knew what was up, okay? And kind of helped me out, if you will. And after a while, and they weren't working there anymore, um, and a new lady was, and I forged my own prescription. Um, I doctored it up. I changed it up, and the other person would have filled it for me. This new lady, it was a no-go. So, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? So I'm freaking out. And that's the first time I brought myself to the only detox addiction help place in Brevard, which was in Melbourne. And so that's how it started, was when I couldn't get it anymore and I was freaking out. And I'm like, okay, I need help. I can't just not have it. What am I going to do? I need help. And I found the help where I should go, and I went. Yeah.
And that's definitely a good thing. So after all this, how long have you been clean and sober from this?
So, like I said, this started, gosh, it started when I was 19. I got fully addicted probably at the age of 21, 22. And I, okay, let's see, I am 42, and I just got well again. And I've only done this, like gotten well, like 4 times. So they put me on treatments, which I'll talk about another time, which were actually worse than the drug I was taking. And because the doctors just kept you on it as long as you paid money, instead of a taper plan and a treatment plan, which is another huge problem I'll discuss. Um, so yeah, so now, it was July of, hold on, because I've messed up in this journey. Um, July 2020? No, I'm sorry. Well, it was a year and a half ago when I was given the Vivitrol shot, and that's what kept me straight the longest. I actually hit 6 months, and I could never go over 3 months because, like, my body just didn't know what to do. I was given treatments for pain medication that were opiates, methadone, Suboxone, and I was kept on it for years and years. So when you suddenly stop taking it, you're not a robot. And if you're on something for so long, your body starts freaking out. So I started drinking again. And anyway, so I relapsed in July of last year, um, because I was abruptly stopped on ADD medication, which I never had a problem with. And I'll get into that story too, of why I was prescribed it and everything else. And I was abruptly stopped. I couldn't afford to see my psychiatrist anymore, and a primary care physician in this new state I'm in filled it for a couple times and then said, I'm not a psychiatrist, this is the last one I can give you. So my body kind of freaked out, and I relapsed on kratom again, which is another subject I need to talk about. It's actually sold at head shops, and it actually hits the opiate receptors in your brain, but it's a poison, and it's actually the worst drug I've ever stopped or ever have come off of. People say it's worse than heroin. Like, people who are 20-year heroin addicts say kratom is a leaf that is grown in, like, Thailand, Indonesia, and they brew it into a tea or put it in a capsule in a powder form, and it hits the opiate receptors in your brain. But people don't know this, so it kind of acts as an opiate, and it's highly addicting. And I took it not knowing that, with a friend, after being in a 28-day program of just getting clean off 7 years of Suboxone. And that was the hardest thing to stop taking, and the longest and the roughest. But I ended up relapsing last year on that. I was like, I'll just take it for a week just to get through the withdrawals. And no, that never happens. It just kept on and on and on. So even though I'm not on Vivitrol shot right now, it is a mood altering help support treatment system. So I don't feel that I am 100% sober. Um, that's what I'm doing now. So I still am in recovery. It's just not how I want it. Being in recovery to me is not using any mood altering substance. It's not something that gets you high, but it's still mood altering. Um, so I do that, but I do meetings. I'm recently newly involved with what's called Recovery Dharma, and it's like Buddhist, Buddha meditation related. Like, it's really awesome, and I will talk more about that as well. So,
Now, my question to you is, as far as the recovery process, how easy is it to fall off the wagon? Like, you mentioned that you've kind of been on and off. I mean,
mm-hmm.
was it easy to fall back into old habits?
Oh God, it is very easy. That is why you can't do it alone. And I was a loner. I was a loner. I just, but there's 4 things they say will keep you sober. That's going to meetings, whether it's AA, NA, or Dharma recovery, like a Buddhist recovery meeting. So meetings, having a sponsor, service work, and working the 12 steps.
Mm.
And I'm sure there's people out there who know kind of what I'm talking about. But the 12 steps can actually work in anyone's life, not just a person who's had addiction problems. The 12 steps, it could be, like I said, it could work for anyone, for anything that they're dealing with, or just a way to go through life. I could go, like, say what they are right now, or I can do that another time. But,
Oh, oh no, let's go ahead and mention the 12 steps. The reason why I say
okay.
that is because obviously people are familiar with them, but
Yeah.
most people are only familiar with them vaguely. And the 12 steps, of course, they're not easy to do, more or less difficult to stick by. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, yes, by all means, go over that very briefly if you like.
Sure, yes. And you do it like when you're doing the work, like you can just live the 12 steps, but when you're like actually with a sponsor working the 12 steps, like, you know, where you're doing written work, that's different. But and like I said, this could be for anyone about anything they're having a problem with. Okay, one, we admitted we were powerless over whatever, that our lives had become unmanageable. Two, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That could be a grasshopper in a tree, or who you call God, or Mother Nature, whatever your higher power is, whatever is greater than you at that moment. Three, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God or a higher power as we understand him or her. Four, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Five, admitted to the higher power, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Six, we're entirely ready to have our higher power remove all these defects of character. Seven, humbly asked my higher power to remove my shortcomings. Eight, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with our higher power as we understand it, praying only for knowledge of its will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts or people and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
So, my question to you is, as we go on to that, when you first was presented with the 12 steps, of course, the old saying is, you have to believe in it to make it work. They can't just present it to you and you live by it. When you first did it, how difficult was it for you to accept these 12 steps?
Okay, well, I was raised, well, my mom, she's a New York Catholic, right? We didn't go to church, maybe on Easter Sunday, but we were spiritual people. We rolled our eyes at Bible thumpers. Sorry, you guys, any of you out there, I don't do that anymore. But just the mentioning of the word God turned me off. And it does a lot of people. Well, it can a lot of people. It was when Wow. Um, I was at a place that I brought myself called How House in Titusville. And it was a sober living place, a safe place you could be. And I don't know what it was, but I wasn't taking anything, to get through it, like like an opiate treatment. I was going to these meetings, AA, down the road, because that was what was next door to us. And all of a sudden, I only used to pray to get out of situations. Like, oh God, I pray I don't get in trouble. I pray I don't get caught. Please, God, just help me get out of this. I'll never do it again. I never just prayed for any other reason except for when it was an emergency and I needed to get out of trouble. But one day, I actually said what was suggested in the meetings, and just the gates opened up, and it actually worked. But I said, I call my higher power God, and I just said, God, I pray for your will, not mine. God, I give myself up to you. I can no longer run the show because it is not working. I don't know what to do. I give myself up to you. Please lead me. Please guide me. I beg of you, please help me. And when I started talking like that and praying like that, I never felt such peace in my entire life. Like, just, and that's when I believed. That's when I started believing. And, and that word did not scare me anymore. I accepted. I gave myself up. I gave all of myself up, and I was okay with doing whatever it took to not suffer anymore.
Right. Interesting. And definitely congratulations for that. So forgive my ignorance.
That was 10 years ago. That was 11 years ago. 11 years ago, I was 31.
Wow. And
Yeah.
for you to go through that, that's just amazing. And I want to backtrack a little bit because once again, it's my
Mm-hmm.
curiosity. When you have a relapse,
Mm-hmm.
do you have to go through the 12 steps all over again? Or do you have the willpower just to accept the fact that you had a relapse and you're going to fix yourself again?
Well, it depends on like where you're at in recovery. Now, there's like falling off the wagon, and then there's like a full on relapse. Falling off the wagon is having a drink, and you shouldn't have done that. A full on relapse is getting addicted to something all over again, where you're doing it every day, and then you're stuck again. You're in the cycle all over again. And if that happens, you should definitely start again from step one, because you need again to admit you're powerless over this and get if it's a slip and you're already working the 12 steps, now I've only, with all these years that I've been in and out of meetings, and trying to do this, I've only had one real sponsor, and that's when I came out to Oregon. We happened, and by the way, you want, if you're a guy, you get a man sponsor. If you're a woman, you get another woman sponsor. That's just how it works, that's just, kind of a rule. And I've never actually worked the full 12 steps, like from one to, and it takes like, it can take a year, like it can take a month a step, to do. Um, you can take as long as you want, and you can do them as many times as you want. But like I said, it all depends on if it was just a slip and you can just get right back on track, then just go from whatever step you were working on and just keep going. If it was a full on relapse where you're out there for months, like you're back full in it, full blast. Yeah, you need to start over. And that's okay. Because the 12 steps aren't a bad thing. They're not nothing that we dread. It's something that gives comfort and helps us a lot. So,
I see. So, did you, and I want to get my terminology correct, did you have a relapse before, or did you just have a few slips here and there?
well, the only time that, okay, like I would get off the pills or the treatment, which was the same exact drug, but just prescribed by a doctor. And the only reason um, I would relapse, which would be picking up a drink, was because the withdrawals were just so bad. Like, just so freaky. Like, the physical stuff is crappy enough, but the mental stuff, especially if that's all because you've been prescribed the stuff or whatever year after year after year after year, you know, my body was just totally freaking out. So I've never relapsed just saying, I just feel like doing this. No, it was because I was so sick that I would do anything to get out of the torture. So, no, I wouldn't run to the drug. I would go to what I call devil juice. And what has gotten me in the most trouble, it was the first thing I ever got addicted to, alcohol. And then when I found my love of opiates, I didn't drink for 10 years, because I was on methadone and Suboxone, that it satisfied me enough. But my slips have always been due to the uncomfortableness of getting off of the treatment or the drug.
So, talking about the freaking out part, um, define freaking out. Was it the side effects of the medication? Because you said it was, I mean, it was more the physical part and being sick, freaking out. I
It was
mean,
more the mental part than the physical part. And it was after not being on any more medication. It's when you're totally with nothing.
so so pretty much your body is going through withdrawals because it didn't have it in the system anymore.
I
So,
felt like an alien in my own body. Like, you're like, it's so hard to explain, but you don't feel real. Like, you don't, you don't, it like, it's like you're crawling out of your skin and you also don't even know who you are and what's going on or who or why or what. And it's the most uncomfortable, disgusting, most scary feeling you could possibly imagine. That it's not even describable.
I see. And final question for this one, then I'll move on.
Yeah.
What was your rock bottom? Did you ever feel that you hit rock bottom?
Yeah, there was a rock bottom. And that's when I was going through withdrawal after 7 years of Suboxone, being prescribed Suboxone because the doctor didn't do it correctly. And of course, a person addicted to opiates is going to let the doctor keep prescribing an opiate. That's a treatment that's supposed to help you. But they're supposed to do a taper plan where after a few weeks, you go down a little more, few weeks, you go down a little more. But no, they'll just keep writing the prescription month after month, year after year, to where you're in a shithole when you need to stop it, So I was prescribed it for 7 years. And when you don't have insurance, you really only get to go into detox for about 6 days. And that's where you're medically watched. They give you medication to help you get through it. But then they send you on your way out the door. And it's like, well, now what? I mean, 6 days does not end this, what you're going through, especially how many years that you were, prescribed or on, like, buying it from the street and using it. So the only thing I could do would be to pick up a drink. And I was a nasty, nasty drunk. That was the only time I used to be in and out of juvenile detention, and that was only when I drank alcohol. I was a totally different person when I didn't drink or get to that point in drinking Jekyll and Hyde. And one of the bottoms I can remember was, I think it was in 2018, my mom, she would not be around me when I was drinking. She didn't really understand yet that much about like addiction. She just recently, since I moved to Oregon and went to rehab for the first time and was on Vivitrol shot, which is non-narcotic, and I was actually doing the damn thing like for the longest amount of time, and the most different way. And but so because my mom and I were living together in the house she grew up in. My grandmother had passed away in 2005, and 2003, and about 2006, after my grandfather was there for some years by himself and his health was failing, and my mom and I moved in, and he had already passed away. Well, I was drinking to get through the withdrawal, and I wanted to come inside, and she would not let me. One of my bottoms was laying on the cold concrete porch with my head and my eyes looking through the sliding glass door, crying and literally begging my mom to let me in. And she wouldn't. And I had to sleep out in the cold, hard concrete porch looking into the home.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and that's really heavy. So now, with your recovery, honestly, how are you doing these days?
I'm a lot better. I will never be where I was ever again. I want to say that. Like, where I was, like, I've never had such recovery before in my life. I've had a sponsor for over a year, the same sponsor. That's never happened before. I started working the steps and reading books like I never have before. I went to, even though it wasn't the best, and I have stories about it, I went to rehab for the first time, which I brought myself to for the first time before for 4 months. I almost forgot the question. Like you said, what was different?
No, I mean, talking about how are you now these days?
Oh,
Um,
yeah. So it's a daily reprieve, because of the amount of years, like most of my life, of being prescribed something I was addicted to, and, one of the heaviest drugs you can be addicted to. Um, you know, oh my God, the first weeks, the first months are so fragile, but you just keep going and it just keeps getting better. And if this junkie can do it, anybody can. And today I can have a job. I don't have to be dependent on something to get through the day. After the rehab, I went to, and it was all women's rehab. I went to their outpatient living where it's just like a house of women. that are in recovery, and we went to groups every day. That started March of last year, and I left there January of this year. And I'm renting a place. I'm working. I'm about to get my license again because I lost it due to being sick. And I couldn't in 2018, and I couldn't work because I was so sick. And so I lost my license. My first job getting sober was Ron John's before before Kratom came around in my life, and I got addicted to that. But that was my first job. Yeah. So Ron John's has a special place in my heart, I'll just say.
Right, and that's
For
where
quite a few reasons.
and that's where you and I met. So
That is right. That is right. And I remember you clearly as, what do you say, as bright as day. Yeah, you're definitely someone to remember. And I do remember you very well.
oh well, thank you. I do
You were
appreciate
great.
that. Thank you. I do
Yeah,
appreciate
you
that.
were awesome.
So what we're going to do, we're going to do a part two to this as
Yes.
well, mainly focusing on your stories,
Sure.
and if my listeners has any questions, they'll send emails and whatnot, but we do want to hear more about your stories because we always focus on the darkness of the addiction and
Mm-hmm.
then the rise of the phoenix afterwards. But
Yeah.
then there are many,
Yes.
many different twists and turns because the path to happiness is never in a straight line. And sometimes
Right.
you can get lost in the woods.
Right.
So, what I would like
Right.
our
As long as you're
listeners,
on that trajectory of going up, you know, yes, there's twists, there's turns, and you guys can ask me anything. I am an open book. I will not hold anything back, and I will answer anything or explain anything, give any advice that I can. Absolutely.
well, very good. And so, as we wind down, um, speaking of advice, that's what I was going to ask you. What
Mm-hmm.
advice would you give to someone that you see was going down the same path that you were going down?
Well, you have to want the help. And by the way, I wanted the help for a very, very, very long time before it actually happened. Just one day is when it happened. Okay. But I will give the advice of what to do. Like you might need to, go detox, in a detox place, um, to get that first rough bit over with. But you can't do it alone, is my advice. That you need to reach out and ask for help, is my advice. And you'll get it.
Cool, very good. And as
Mm-hmm.
the show comes to a close, this part one. Of course, I do thank you for taking the time for coming on the show and having
I
conversation and
thank
talking.
you. I thank you for giving me the chance and other people the chance to hear this and for me to share it. Thank you
Oh,
very much.
oh, no
You're
problem
doing a
whatsoever.
good thing.
Well, I do appreciate it. So, as we put a close onto the show, of course, we have to let everyone know that to find us, we have 22 free apps to download the show on. Just do a search for the Walker AC Experience. I'll give you a link to all the other shows. Be sure to like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, get those algorithms going. 'Cause if you're looking for a
Yes.
show to listen to, maybe for a half hour to an hour to unplug your brain, choose the Walker AC Experience. Carmen, once again, thank you. And we're going to get back with you for a part two to get more in depth with everything. So, anything you'd like to say to anyone before we say goodnight for now?
Sure. I want to say definitely, keep listening. Walker's podcasts are amazing. So definitely thumbs up and subscribe if it's helping you in any way or made you smile in any way or anything. Um, and the ASMR actually really helped me go through withdrawal when I was having anxiety attacks. When anything, I highly suggest typing ASMR into YouTube as well. It's very helpful. Um, I forgot what else I was going to say, but also we can talk about art. And I know about every type of art and how to do it. So we can talk about fun things too. But that'll, there's part ones and twos of everything. So, and I also want to be able to listen to this. So tell me how to do it so I can listen to myself talk because I'm full of myself.
Oh, that's no problem. What we'll do after we end the show, I'll keep
When
you
we're
on.
done.
Yeah, once we're done,
Yeah.
I'll keep you on for a few more minutes here. But of course, as we wrap up, of course, we thank you guys for choosing to listen to our show. This has been the Walker AC Experience, and as I always say, as our memories get longer, our life gets shorter. Appreciate what you have around you. Take each and every day like your last. Appreciate the little things. Tell the people out there that you love them because you never know. So thank you
And
once.
you're worth it. So don't give up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This has been a Walker AC experience. I have been Adrian. You've been my friends, my family, my loved ones, the people who love me, also people who hate me. You're still listening. Nanny, nanny, boo boo. So
That's
we
right.
will we'll talk to you next time.